Hello. Hello. ¿Cómo está? This is the inaugural, the pilot, the first episode, Pinballers Free Play Podcast. We're going to be doing this every month. We're going to have guests. We're going to talk pinball. We're going to talk all things pinball. We're going to talk the history of pinball. We're going to talk tables coming up. We're going to talk events that are coming up, etc., or anything else that comes up. So this is it's a podcast run by the community group. Guests may change. Hopefully the host doesn't. But for the most part, this is going to be a all pinball all the time podcast right here from Free Play Arlington. So this is not disclaimer. Nothing's being endorsed here. This is not Free Play corporate mouthpiece. This is raw. This is real. The man is the enemy. Hack the Gibson. Or whatever. So.
Whatever.
All right. So first off, like I said, this is going to be a monthly thing. Hopefully, maybe we'll see how this goes. So for now, if y'all would like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I found pinball through Free Play, which was awesome because free pinball is awesome, and been playing it ever since, and I love it.
And I'm Austin Smith. I'm also a pinball enthusiast thanks to Free Play. So appreciate the fact that they have made the scene what it is to some degree. I know there's little cliques out there that meet and do pinball outside of this, but this is how I regained my interest in pins and arcades in general, I guess you'd say.
I'm Britton. Free Play is definitely the impetus for my pinball passion. I've been playing competitively for a couple of years now. It quickly became an all-consuming obsession that led me here today, being the three-time champion of Pinball Monday, which, by the way, is coming up this Monday, right here, Free Play Arlington. So come out. June 10th, 7 p.m.
Be there or be
there. Square. Show up late.
That's right.
People do that.
Yep.
There is a penalty, but show up late. Yeah, Shannon, what have you won?
I won TNA with the monthly pinball.
Hell yeah, brother.
Okay, Chris had the high score, but he didn't count, right?
No, Chris does not count.
He was an employee at the time.
He doesn't count for anything.
I won another one, too, and I can't remember what it was. But TNA, I definitely remember. That was one of my favorites.
Okay, so we just had, besides Pinball Monday, which happens monthly, usually the first Monday of the month, assuming nothing else prohibits that, we wrapped up our spring series, first ever Pinball Mania tournament right here, Free Play Arlington. And 3 pools, cash prizes, big-ass trophy, big pinball at the top. They did it right. Ken Kemp was the winner. He walked home with the cash, walked home with the garish trophy that, according to him, is sitting on his shelf. What did we think about that?
That was awesome.
You were here.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, seeing, some familiar faces as well as some new people, getting to talk to Ken and Kemp and Austin Kemp, his son, about the collection they have at home and their interest in pinball. I mean, that was just that was beautiful to me. Kind of meeting them for the first time and talking about their interest. I thought it was awesome. What about you, Shannon?
I missed it, and I was so bummed. Like, I was looking forward to that for a long time, and I missed it. Had babysitter issues, but I will be at the next one for sure.
I am quite confident there will be a next one. It ran just about as smoothly as any tournament I've ever been to, which was pretty brilliant for the first big tournament we've thrown. Again, we've do this monthly, a pinball tournament, but nothing to this scale. New machines were purchased. We'll talk a little bit about that later and about how that maybe didn't go quite as smoothly as we anticipated. But other than that, Ken Kemp, the winner, he's hopefully will show his face around here a little bit more. The guy's a great player, good personality. His son, also nice dude, good collection. So the winning. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the format. It's run the same way that we run our Pinball Mondays, with a little twist. Pinball Monday, everybody is thrown into one pool. We throw it into match play. Everybody's assigned to a table in 4-person or 3-person groups. just depending on the number of people we have, if it's an odd or even number. We do a strike system, which I did want to talk about that a little bit because I've been to, I don't want to say a lot of tournaments, but I've been to a good handful of tournaments at different places, Free Play and other establishments around, and I think the way that Free Play does it is the best way. I've been to some tournaments that have lasted almost 7 hours.
Wow.
For people, for tournaments that have maybe half the amount of competitors, which is kind of ridiculous. So the way it works, everybody, you're on a 4-person or 3-person table. You come in first or second, you move on, nothing happens. You are thrown into your next group after everybody's done, and you have a nice day. If you're in third or fourth, you get a strike. If you come in third or second on a 3-person table, you also get a strike. So you want to avoid a 3-person table if you can.
Yes.
But and if you get 3 strikes, you're out. So it moves quickly. People are getting knocked out in bunches, which is a good thing because you don't want. That's the problem with head-to-head tournaments is that people drop like flies, one after another, after another, after another. This one, things move quickly. They move succinctly, and you don't have to. Let's say you get paired with some pinball wizard, and you're newer to the game. You don't have to beat him. You just have to not be third or fourth. So it's a little forgiving in that sense. You've been to a lot of these, so have you.
Especially in the beginning. That's how I could hang for a couple hours.
Have you been to any other tournaments using any other system?
No.
So this is all you know.
Yes.
What do you, I mean,
I love it. I think it's great. You can come in here, not be that good, and still make it, to round 5 or 6 and have a good time. And I see people in chat are hating on 7-hour tournaments. That sounds like fun to me too, though, because
and that's
I could get down with 7 hours of pinball.
This is the whole. You think that this is a podcast about pinball and people who like pinball and love playing pinball. But I'm telling you, when you get there at 1 o'clock and it's now like 8 or 8:30, and you're tired and you're hungry and there gets to be a lot of waiting around.
Beer and food.
Yep.
There has to be food
And beer.
This one specific I'm talking about, no food. But it gets to be a bit of a drag as anything that takes 7 hours. It's usually not all super exciting. So the way Free Play does it is the right way. I hope more places start doing it. But until then, I'll be here. So, Austin, I mean.
Man, I haven't experienced anything else. I have heard about, because I have several friends that do play in other tournaments, and that 7 or 8 hour gig where you're kind of sitting around watching the paint dry, so to speak. I get it. Pinball's cool, and I'll travel to play pinball, but in that kind of environment, like I've seen them doing it at TPF, I could share that experience, right? Where people are just literally sitting around in a lounge waiting for a table. That's not exactly exciting, in my opinion. But yeah, once you get to play, it's a different discussion. But yeah, hurry up and wait's not my thing.
Yeah, 7 hours, you got to be able to play while you're waiting.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and that's another good thing about Free Play is there's, especially Arlington, the collection is as enormous as it is perfect. They have tables from all eras. You have solid states. You have from the newest Stearns to Vector, which is not only a rare game but an 80s game that is probably a little underloved, and so you can go scratch your itch while you're waiting for games to wrap up. And there were some games that took a while, and that's what happens on games like Hobbit and Wide Bodies that don't have as much up in your face to hit, not as many danger shots. A lot of things are up at the top of the play field, and so you got a little time to react. And so sometimes you'll get long balls, long games. That's going to happen. There'll also be some games where you plunge the ball, flip the ball twice, and your turn's over. So it all balances out, but especially when you're running a big tournament like that, everything went just about as smoothly as you could hope for, with a slight asterisk on that. So future, where can we take this from here? What are some things we want to see differently, if at all? I think the way that we did it worked perfectly, and I definitely hope and think that we'll do it again next year. I don't see why not. Everybody seemed to have a good time. Reviews have been good. We have other things, though, like there's other form. Has anybody heard of ping golf?
No.
Yep.
So in a normal tournament, it's what you'd imagine. It's who has the highest score, that's who wins. It doesn't matter how you get there, get the highest score unless you're cheating or whatever. But get the highest score and you're good to go. But and Pinball's a little bit differently, and this is something I just have been learning about. I think it's picking up a little steam in terms of popularity in other venues, but it's you're shooting for certain achievements in the game. So let's say you're playing Deadpool. You want to start the ninja multi-ball on ball 1. That's a par 1. If you started on ball 2, then that's a 2. If you start on ball 3, that's a 3. You want to have the lowest score. It's stuff like that. So you could blow the game up, put up 1 billion points if you manage to do that without hitting ninja multi-ball or whatever, and still lose to the guy who got multi-ball on ball 1, drained all his balls. So that's an idea that it's a different take on the pinball tournament. Not that we're in any need of changing things up necessarily, but there's a lot of different ideas for where pinball can go, just because it's such a visceral and physical game that there's things to be done with it, and I think eventually maybe we'll play with that a little bit. But is there anything else y'all could think of that maybe would be differently, needs to be changed, needs to be added, or just things that would benefit the experience?
I kind of like the way it is today. I mean, that is interesting for sure. What you called out. I think, pinball, if you're talking a modern table, it's so reliant upon rule set, right? And so if you're familiar with that rule set, it brings a whole different dynamic. So maybe that's one of the things to call out too is, when you consider playing on older tables that don't necessarily have that depth, and you just think about all the intricacies of some of the machines we'll be talking about later on. I think about how the knowledge of that plays into it. I mean, you really have a distinct advantage on some of those scenarios that I could at least think about.
Another thing that came to mind while you were talking about that is, especially when we talk about Ken and Austin, is a split flipper. Obviously, this would not be a regular thing. It's goofy. This is not traditional pinball, but if you've never played split flipper, it's one person works the right flipper and one person works the left flipper, and that's it. And so it takes a little teamwork. It usually gets crazy. There's usually bickering. Oh, why did you hit that shot? How'd you let that happen? So that would be something that maybe eventually would be fun to see. But like I said, there's a lot of different, aside from your traditional high score wins, a lot of different things you can do with pinball tournaments. That's probably not the best idea for a big money on the line tournament like we just had. But just at some point, especially if you own tables, there is a little fatigue. Just playing the same thing over and over again. It's fun to mix it up.
It's like side missions.
Right. Yeah. Just something like see how quick you can do this, or
and it would improve your game too, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a different take on something that you're probably pretty familiar with by now, and I don't know. We'll see where that goes. So the asterisk we were referring to earlier with the new tables that arrived. I want to talk a little bit about Jersey Jack and the Pirates table as a whole. So Free Play had 2 new Jersey Jacks arrive, dead on arrival, some pretty expensive bricks. The tech staff here is amazing. Things were miswired, and all sorts of things had to be unplugged and replugged and tested, and miraculously we finished the tournament on Pirates. That was what Ken won on, was the new Pirates table. Came out late last year. It's a Jersey Jack game based out of New Jersey. They started up in 2011, so they're pretty new to the pinball scene. There's some footage of it right there. As you can see, there's a lot going on. But, yeah, they arrived as big bricks and boxes, which was unfortunate. But, like I said, things got fixed. So Austin works with computers, to put that in a really oversimplified way. He might be able to expand on this a little bit. So do you know a little bit more about what happened?
Yeah, I mean, and let me kind of intro, right? Anyone who knows about producing complex machinery and complex computers, this could literally happen to any product. So we're not trying to beat up on JJP, but it was incredibly unfortunate. So both of these pins out of the box, same boot loop error involving a coin door error message. And I won't go into too much of it, but the net is you start troubleshooting that, you start looking at optos and other things and all the simple things. Because if you maybe to step back a bit, if you ever have pulled up a pinball table and you've seen underneath it, and this is maybe a good call out for JJP, they've removed a lot of wire, and by virtue of that, a lot of complexity. So they interconnect a lot of their boards. A lot of the communication paths that would be traditionally wired up to a central area are all Ethernet connected, just like Cat5, hardwire connection to internet at your house is, or Cat6 or Cat7. And so taking that into account, you look underneath it, and it looks like it's much more simplified. So you would think it would increase reliability, simplify maintenance. I mean, that is the goal behind their design. And so you have to applaud them for that. And in many ways, it is a beautiful table. So the disappointment in having two of them become new in box, experience the exact same error, where you basically have them up for 30 seconds. They boot loop is what I would refer to it as, with the same error code. It's a little bit disheartening, right? Because you're talking about machines that are, for those who are unaware, this is 9,500 list.
Yes.
It's not cheap.
And that's something I also wanted to touch on a bit, and not just Jersey Jack, but these boutique pinball places in general. Jersey Jack, Spooky. Now you have American, who came out with Houdini, and then Oktoberfest more recently. So the games tend to be a little bit more expensive, and so with that, you'd hope to get more quality, or at least more features, maybe stuff that you just won't expect from a Stern, which tends to, not more basic necessarily, but they're certainly more prolific. They're pumping out, at least 3 to 4 titles a year, and that includes, premium, limited editions, etc. So what has your overall thought been on these? I want to stress, competition's good. What has your thought been so far with these newer companies that are coming in and trying to nudge their way in and push Stern aside a little bit?
In my own personal opinion, and Shannon, you certainly weigh in as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But my gut is this. I know Stern takes a lot of heat because you see a lot of repetition. You see a lot of approaches to, okay, it's same shots, new IP, right? New intellectual property, someone they've licensed into it. It's probably going to be a movie, and then it's going to be a band, followed up by then a movie and then a band, right? I get it, and people beat them up over that. But you got to give them credit. I really think in many ways the fact that they were, for a short period of time at least, the only manufacturer around, they kind of kept that torch going. So I applaud them for that. And I have Stern tables too at home. So not that I'm biased towards one or the other. There's some things I definitely think they could change. And when you look at the complexity and the beauty of what JJP's built on, by a comparison, right, that 27-inch LCD that's in there, they've got a lot of modern features that really should simplify it. I think they've got a few things they could work out on the tech side to correct some of their reliability. But I do like the flavor that they're adding, JJP and the like. But all of those other competitors, they have their own issues as well.
Sure.
And then what are you going to do? You're going to fall back to so Chicago Gaming is going to come in and remake a title. It's fairly fixed. I mean, I'd almost like to see maybe yet another option that doesn't necessarily have the constraints of production that a Spooky or someone like that has. But that being said, I like tables from every one of them that are in the market today, and I appreciate every one of them being in business. And then I could also probably derail every table that's made right now, even those that I own and love. So it kind of goes both ways. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the more the merrier.
Yep.
I don't care who's making tables, as long as people keep making tables and bringing new stuff out, because you're gonna find quirks with every table.
Sure.
You find things you like, things you don't like. I definitely do like the modern. I'm a big fan of modern.
Yeah.
Spice it up, make it digital, whatever. I don't know, but my favorite at the moment, Medieval Madness is probably my all-time favorite.
Great choice. That's a great choice.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to go wrong with that one.
And then TNA's probably up there second. And I've learned a lot of ball control with that table. So that's
a Spooky title. That's one of those manufacturers we're talking about.
Yep.
That's not a Stern. That's one of the smaller companies. And I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah.
And they have
what
co-op
an amazing
mode,
table.
just different things that you don't see typically. You can all four play against the computer and try to beat the game.
Yep.
And stuff like that I think is awesome. And you can play 2 versus 2, and you can steal other people's multi-balls, things that just shake it up a little bit, make it a little different.
I think that is sort of the shining beacon for not just Spooky, but for really, in my opinion, JJP and other manufacturers that come after to look at and say, this thing took off, and it did. Besides maybe Dialed In, you don't see that many other tables besides Stearns, Williams, Gottlieb's, etc. But I've seen a few TNAs, I've seen a few Dialed Ins, and so these are tables I think you want to look at and build on and say we can do we can do this. We can make tables that people like that aren't manufactured by Stern and aren't basically reskins of tables that have already existed with the same shots but different colors.
You got people that have been playing pinball for 30, 40 years, and that's what they like, and they don't want it changed up. They don't like the new tables, but there's a whole nother market out there, people that are just starting to play pinball or have never played, but maybe they would play if they got a flashy table like, Pirates or something.
Well, so that's something that I think and hope that maybe Stern picks up on. Wizard of Oz was the first ever American-made table to have an LCD screen.
Gorgeous.
No, it's great. The game is it's gorgeous, and that came from JJP. So I mean they're innovating, and we'll just see where it goes from there. I'm hoping they're poking the big guys in the right direction.
But if anyone making pinball tables out there is listening, we need ball saves, okay, please? I need ball saves.
Speaking of ball saves, a table that does not have it, or at least does not have it on by default, is Pirates. Like we said, they arrived in not working condition. But so this is a wide body. This came out late last year, and that's one thing that you can't say about Stearns necessarily is that these things come packed. That map circle in the middle spins. That boat in the top right is one of the coolest, if not the coolest, toys/gimmicks I've ever seen in a pinball machine. It rocks back and forth. There's 2 flippers up there. It's a mini play field. There's spinners. There's stand-up targets. If you shoot it in that upper left spot up there, you can fire a cannon that physically shoots the ball across to the ship on the left side of the field. That chest locks balls in it in the center of the field. I mean, it's got so much going on that it's hard to even describe it until you play it. You've got pop bumpers down there below the ship. You've got a loop. You've got orbits. You've got mystery scoop. You've got a scoop that's under the flipper to the left. It's so hard to describe about how jam-packed this thing is, full of basically anything you could want in a pinball machine. This game has it. And so this is my personal favorite. I've played it maybe 20 times. This is already my favorite Jersey Jack game. I think this thing's awesome. And above all that, maybe the coolest part for me is that instead of having modes to select, and we'll get to that because you can sort of, or characters to pick, you have basically what's comparable to, like, I almost think of it kind of like a fighting game because some of them interact with each other a little bit. There's like 20 characters that you can pick, and almost all of them have vastly different effects on the game. Some of them make your multi-balls last longer. Some of them make certain shots you don't even have to hit them. You can hit these stand-ups to the left or the right. Some of them are really sort of niche, like if you drain all 3 of your multi-balls at the same time, you get it back. There's so much creativity packed in this game, and they took pinball in a direction that I hadn't seen before, and that I hope maybe pushes the envelope a little bit. It's hard to even unpack. I mean, you've both played it a little bit now. What do you think?
Yeah, Shannon, what are your thoughts on it?
It's fun. So before I play a table for the first time, I like to go online and I like to read up on the rules, how to score points, how to beat the game, little tricks and tips. And this game has a lot. There's no reading up on it right before I come up here and figuring it out. There's a whole bunch to learn in this game. It's like you said, there's 20 characters, so you got to learn, figure out which one works best for your play style. And then, there's a lot to do on this table, and I haven't figured it out yet, but I will.
Yeah, it's a cool table, like you said. I mean, there's so much to unpack on it. It's got a deep rule set. There's so many things that are interplay. There's so many things you can stack. I think they're still developing code. I think you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. They've got, in essence, 5 mini wizard modes that correlate to, previous Pirates movies. They don't have the final wizard mode built yet, at least to my knowledge. I don't think it's, as of this broadcast, I don't think it's available.
I don't think so either.
And a lot of the things you talked about, and I touched on this, you would think would lead to wiring complexity underneath, right, if you're looking at it from a maintenance, and they really simplified it with their design. That shot you mentioned, the Bayou shot, where you're literally raising a flipper and going underneath, they've just done so many cool things. And then, carrying forward simple things like that 27-inch LCD that's in there, and the way that it brings, either call-outs or progress in the game with the maps on this one in particular. And you mentioned WAS earlier. I mean, the things that they're carrying forward they're beautiful. I love what they're doing. I just wish they would correct some of those little quirks that we've seen on a game that, quite frankly, you mentioned you love it. I love this game too, and I don't have that depth of skill set and knowledge yet to know everything kind of interacts, from a table rules perspective. So, I look for what it will bring. It's just it is a little bit frustrating in the beginning, that reliability that we've experienced thus far.
Yeah, and as far as some of the code stuff goes, thankfully we live in the modern age of pinball where, for the most part, unless it's a physical defect, these things can be fixed, tweaked, adjusted, balanced, and balance adjustments in terms of code happen in pinball pretty frequently. See, Guardians is a really good example. It was sort of a shoot it up the middle, hit Groot over and over again, and that's where your points are. And then after a few code updates, it became a really balanced game where you got different sort of modes and like second modes, and things just got spread out a little bit. And I'm sure we'll see that with Jersey Jack. Another thing that I don't know if I've seen in a pinball machine before, though, is balancing in terms of characters. I think of other games that have sort of characters that you can pick or songs that you can pick, and Star Wars comes to mind, but that's
it's more of a mode.
It's more of a mode, yeah. You're starting sort of with certain things qualified or lit, but it's not necessarily a mode. This is you're picking a character, and let's say you go first, and you really want to play Jack Sparrow, and the guy who's going second really wants to play Jack Sparrow. The guy going second cannot pick him. He's locked in. You have him for the game. That sort of brings an interesting balance aspect to that, too, that I'm confident at some point somebody's going to break this game to the point where they're going to be like, okay, here's what you do. You pick Will, and then you hit this shot, and you hit this shot, and eventually you're just going to blow the game up because Will has this, and he adjusts this scoring. And so I think we'll see balance in terms of characters, too, which I don't think you can save at any other pinball machine.
But can't you steal somebody's character?
Yeah, you can steal characters. You can steal gold, which is also another thing. There's a character where a feature in this game is plundering gold. And if you get a certain amount of gold, you start a multi-ball. And so there's certain characters that can steal gold. But there's also a character that can't steal gold, but also can't be stolen from. And so there's almost a sense of mind game going on too, especially when you consider a 4-player game, about how these characters interact with each other. And I can't even wrap my head around how all the different ways that plays out. I'm sure other people will figure that out and break it to the best of their ability. But my guess is this game, as it stands right now, it's not even at a 1.0 code yet. I think it's 0.99 or 0.98. But my guess is it will grow and evolve in terms of scoring and strategy pretty significantly as it progresses. Right now, I tend to start with I don't even remember his name. It's like
Will or Jack, or
it's not Will or Jack. It's the guy who spots female characters in modes, and probably not the best character. But that's just who I'm picking for now, because you can't pick your mode in this game unless you're a specific character who can. And this, you throw it up in a sort of little contained area, post comes up, and the ball bounces around, hits all these stand-ups, and you sort of are randomly assigned a mode. But there's female characters in a lot of modes, and so usually you end up having a few shots spotted for you. And the modes are pretty lucrative in this game, so that can be nice when it happens. It doesn't always happen. But I don't know. What about y'all? What characters?
I haven't played it enough to really know yet, but my go-to just in the beginning was to get the multi-ball faster.
Yeah.
I figure that's always a good place to start.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because there are a lot of characters that have interactions with multi-balls, making them start easier, making the scoring. You don't have to actually hit the ramp; you can just hit sort of close to the ramp, stuff like that. but almost in every case that involves interaction with a multi-ball, it halves your points. So I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it or not yet. And maybe eventually if it comes out that nobody's playing these characters because it halves your multi-ball points, maybe they'll fix it. Maybe it'll be like 3/4 of your points or whatever. I don't know. But what about you, Austin? What do you?
You know, and I think it may have been Scrum was the character you're trying to think about, because I know we played a couple of games earlier. You know, so a quick call out, right? If you want a pretty decent tutorial on this game, there was one that was done by Buffalo Pinball. I think it was about 47 minutes long. They do like 39 minutes of walkthrough on just exactly what we're talking about, depth of character selection. And so I recently started picking my characters based on what they have called out. So Will or Jack, and there's a couple of reasons why you could pick both of those. We actually ran into a bug earlier.
Yeah.
So I'll call out. So apparently, out of 3 times that I've picked a Will, it actually changed characters after I selected it. So that's probably just a code issue. But the other thing I would call out is kind of one of the points you touched on, and I don't know if we mentioned this. It was so I saw this when I was at Texas Pinball Festival. It was on the advertisement for the game, and I'm probably misstating the number, but it was something ridiculous like 16.2 or 16.7 septillion variations of possible gameplay. So the idea that there's so many variables, and the fact that the modes are not selectable, right? You can pick a character, but you can't pick your mode, so there's so many variations that what they're in essence saying is that you could literally play this game and never play the same game twice. That being said, you've got some base rules around Will or Jack or others that you could definitely build off of and have some control over scoring and the like.
And that's another thing that I do think maybe it'll get changed eventually, and maybe this is kind of what they intended. But let's say you're a collector and you buy Pirates and you have it at your house and you usually just play by yourself. Well, certain characters off the bat, specifically the ones that can't plunder gold or whatever, you have zero incentive to pick him.
Don't bother.
Don't bother. It's useless.
Yep.
And so I almost wonder if maybe there'll be different settings for if you're playing, single player, if you're having a multiplayer game, things like that. Again, this is sort of uncharted territory for pinball, having to sort of balance around selecting characters that cannot be selected by anybody else. But I'm pretty encouraged. Just again, not even 1.0 code, but I'm pretty encouraged about how this game plays, how it scores.
Yeah, it's going to make a huge difference when you're in a tournament. Whoever happens to be first player gets their first player for the character. And that could be a game changer. And
that's one thing I do worry about a little bit is just the tournament viability going forward. I'm sure there is a tournament mode on it. What it does, I'm not positive on. It for all I know, certain characters aren't selectable, or it changes the scoring a little bit. I'm not positive, but I'm sure there's a tournament mode. And again, these things will be tweaked.
I know one of the elements that people complained about early on is there was no tournament mode concept where you could turn off plundering. Now there is with the latest code release. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, they're definitely changing some of the things in response to it. But I still think, to Shannon's call out, right, there probably needs to be some other changes for tournament mode too, because I can tell you right now, Will could be a benefit. Plundering in tournament, that's just something that shouldn't be allowed, right? When you think about the advantage of being able to plunder in tournament, so I'm glad they corrected that out of the gate, pretty much out of the gate. I mean, they definitely had a couple of months where people were complaining about it before it was corrected in code. So
I don't know. As a low-end player, I kind of dig it, because here's the deal: is you have 4 players, and let's say I'm
just random, right?
I'm in the middle, so I might have 2 people above me. So those 2 guys are gonna take each other's stuff. And then I'm going to take their stuff and might bump me up in a second. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as a lower level player, I think it might be helpful. I don't know.
It has some randomness to it, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to that extent, I mean, and that's the sort of interesting thing about pinball is you're not really playing against the other person. You know what I mean? You are playing yourself to get the highest score. What score they get has zero effect on your gameplay, with a few exceptions. Things like roller games, you can steal balls. TNA, you can steal balls.
Yep.
Mystery awards, that's sort of just become an accepted part of a game. Sometimes you're going to get lucky and it's going to start the multi-ball, and other times you're going to, like in roller games, penalty pod. You get no points. Nothing even happens. So that's part of the game. But in terms of plundering, I mean, if there's a way to make it set, and maybe there is, I'm not, I do not know this game like the back of my hand, but if there's a way to make it set so where a certain shot qualifies it or something like that, or a combo, you might be able to play with that because that's under the player's control. But in terms of randomness, pinball is already random enough. Just in terms of the ball can do crazy things. It's a physical, visceral game. You don't really want any more randomness than you can help.
Oh, and when I say I would enjoy it, I'm talking like the casual tournaments that we hold here. Now, a big money tournament, we don't want that stuff on there. Because that should be all about skill as much as possible,
So with Jersey Jack and all the crazy stuff you can do in this game that generally is not available in other pinball games, and just the sheer amount of features and toys in this game, let's talk about sort of generally the state of where pinball is at. I feel almost awkward talking about it because I haven't been in the hobby long enough to, I'm 24, so I sort of missed what most people would consider the golden age, which is 80s, when solid state sort of became a thing, and there was all these new ideas you could do with pinball. We sort of graduated from the EMs, and suddenly there's all these different features that are available that weren't before because of mostly technology and how much you can pack into a game. But I do want to give the argument that we are living in the golden age of pinball. Yes. I feel like a lot of the purists maybe will cringe at that a little bit, but we went from Bally Williams. You had Sega made a couple games, Data East made a few games. Gottlieb was a big player, and I don't want to say any of these besides Stern are at that level yet, but you have, first of all, Stern in of themselves is why I'm making this argument. They're coming out with 4 to 5 games every year. And again, it's not always the most creative design, playfield-wise, layout-wise. Yeah, some of it's a little recycled, but there's usually a lot of cool things to do here. Deadpool's a good example. Deadpool's a really creative, clever game. That lock shot that sort of curves around and goes down, that's really cool. I mean, that's clever, that's creative, that's innovative.
Yep.
Among other things. We talk about TNA, who sort of takes a modern spin on sort of an old EM layout almost, where everything's flat, there's no ramps, there's spinners, there's a ball lock, and there's pop bumpers, and that's just about it. I don't know. I think we are living in the golden age. That being said, there's some drawbacks to that. The pricing has gotten a little crazy for people who don't have a big collection to build off of. It's a little bit easier for people who did have a big collection when things are a little bit more moderately priced, because you can always swap, trade. Those are going up in value. But to get into the hobby, it's a little cost prohibitive, especially when you consider almost every game, Stern specifically, but also like Pirates, for example, comes out with a Pro Edition, a sometimes limited edition, premium edition. Now they're re-releasing like Munsters, which just came out. They're releasing color editions of that now. So it gets a little crazy in that regard. There's pros and cons, but I think we are in the golden age of pinball.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, it's, all the things you called out are true. Scott Danessy, right? He comes in, he's a SQL programmer by trade. He creates TNA. He gets a manufacturer to go produce it. You have to have that market. You have to have that interest. And I was actually talking about this exact discussion with someone the other day. What is driving the interest, right? Is it because there are so many? Quite frankly, there's so many festivals. Is that part of it, right? I don't know. I don't know that you can point to one thing. And again, I should also maybe qualify myself. I've only been really pinballing actively now for a little over a year plus. So much like yourself, yeah, I've got a few more years on me than you do. But I'm not one of these people that I don't have 30 of them in my house, from the golden age. But I love the fact that there's a big community out there. I travel a lot for work. Everywhere I go around the world, I've been able to find a pinball.
Oh, the chat has thoughts on golden age.
Uh-oh.
More of a renaissance than the golden age. And so, like I said, I knew that it's a hot take. It's scorching hot. Don't burn yourself.
Yep.
But I think there is a very legitimate argument to be made that we're in the golden age.
Yep. I think the tables are getting better, but the popularity isn't there like it used to be. And there's a lot of people that play that I know here that play a lot, but my friends all suck. None of them play pinball regularly. You know what I'm saying? And I have a lot of friends. Oh, I know. That's what I keep telling them. I need new friends. But it just seems like it's not as popular as it used to be, because back then you didn't have Call of Duty, you didn't have Xbox, PlayStation. You had the arcade, which was pinball and cabinets, and that was it. And now everyone's got all these options, and you have to leave your house to go play pinball, and it's just not as popular as it was before. This is how I look at it.
I can see that as a take on it. I mean, for sure. I mean, what you're saying, it's true that we have more options in this day and age, just in terms of everything, types of vehicle you want to types of games you want to play, right? But I'm always blown away by how well attended the festivals are. That's what gets me. And like I could call out to like everywhere we visited, like as an example, a museum in Seattle we went to, and there are people in there from 9 to probably 75. I wouldn't say 90, which would probably be what most people think. But I mean, Sarah, it just ran the gamut, and playing everything. I mean, everything from the tables they have up there in the 30s all the way up to the latest and greatest.
And let's say even if you don't want to go by the standard that today's games are better, at the very minimum, and again, I'm saying this with the knowledge that you used to be able to go to 7-Eleven and play pinball. The concept of that blows my mind, but the number and the sort of arcade renaissance that we're in, I won't say it's the golden age of arcades. I won't go that far.
No.
But the arcade renaissance that we're in, where places are popping up left and right, some of them doing it better than others, but the options that you have are pretty fantastic, and especially when you consider I'm going to talk about free play because that's where we're here, but the sheer the maintenance, the like Tron LE that's here, you're not going to find that in the wild. Stuff like that. There's more and more places to play these crazy games that you can never play in public anywhere else. And I don't know. This feels good. This feels right. We can go up from here though. I guess is the thing. And so I think in the next decade or so, I'm hoping we see another resurgence, and it won't be an argument anymore that we will be living in the golden age of pinball. There's still so much to do, so much to innovate, and we're seeing some of that with Pirates. But
technology,
we can still go up from here. So to wrap things up a little bit, Jersey Jack, good. Spooky, good. Boutique pinball competition, good. This is an established concept, but Spring Series, awesome. Let's keep doing that. I'm sure we'll do that again. I have heard nothing but good things. It's hard to run these tournaments, especially. It's a little different. There's no timer. You know, things can go wrong, and they will go wrong. Things have to be fixed quickly. Balls have to be unstuck. Crazy stuff is going to happen with the machine. It's just going to restart in the middle of a ball. What do you do? These things are hard. Free Play killed it. I'm sure we'll do it again. And there's also a lot of different places we can go with the tournaments besides Pinball Mania and Pinball Monday.
Do we even know how many tables they, just as I mentioned, just so everyone, kind of listening knows why we're raving about this setup, but was it 9 brand new tables? I mean, it was
Pirates,
something.
An ACDC,
so
Lucy.
You had two JJP Pirates. You had the Hobbit from JJP. You had a new inbox ACDC Lucy. You had a new inbox Iron Maiden Pro, right? And I'm probably missing a couple of other.
There might have been a TNA. Was there?
There was
another
a new inbox TNA. That's 6.
So
yeah, you just start adding that up. That's
the investment alone it blows my mind, but the execution on top of that, you can't talk enough about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of which, all those machines are going places, and a lot of them, my guesses, are going to Free Play Fort Worth.
I think that's a safe guess.
We're in the process of getting all that together. I think that is a safe guess. So again, expanding. This model is doing it right, and that tournament was run right. That's for sure. So I'm sure we'll see more stuff like that in the future. So again, speaking of free play tournaments, this Monday right here, Free Play Arlington, June 10th, 7 o'clock. Be there. If you're going to be a couple minutes late, if you drive far from work, show up. You get a strike if you don't make it. If not, we'll put you on ball 4 and cross our fingers you make it. But show up. It's awesome. I've seen crazy stuff happen. You'll see players who could probably play some games blindfolded, get knocked out, with 3 strikes, and you've seen people who barely understand what they're doing walk up and knock out some big players. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Show up. Don't beat me. Don't beat her.
Yeah.
Don't beat him. You can beat everybody else, but
I won't be here, so you won't have me to
Nah, he
worry
won't
about.
be.
I won't be
That's
here,
a bummer.
unfortunately. So.
I will be here.
I will too. I never miss him.
And props to Chris Delp for running all this stuff smoothly, without complaining.
Yes.
Good job, buddy.
All right, prediction. Warren Joe
Warren Joe.
will win his second Pinball Monday tournament. There's no bet. It's
Warren
I'm
is
coming
a
in
solid
third.
player. That guy lives and breathes pinball. I was out playing the Big Lebowski.
Yes.
If you're familiar with Dutch pinball and the story behind it, the 42 that were produced.
Yes.
There was one available to the public, and ran into Warren. Tracy and I, my wife, for those of you who don't know, were out, ran into him playing the Big Lebowski. So that was pretty cool.
the guy has a passion. There
He
he
has a
is.
passion. He
He's
has
got
a
a passion, and the dude's got ice water in his veins. Not to mention, there he is tilting. Speaking of which,
He's a heck of a player. but he tilted after he got GC on first
He's just-
ball, right? I mean,
he's-
it was something crazy like
he's
that.
just, you don't want to make him mad. He's beyond aggressive. He flies off the handle. No, I'm just kidding. He's like
He's
the
the
calmest
calmest
guy I've
guy.
ever met.
He
It's
is.
crazy.
Is that-
And
maybe
And
that's
pinball
his
is
secret.
frustrating.
Maybe
Pinball
that's
is
his secret.
frustrating, and that dude
It's the
stays calm.
calmness.
So Pinball Monday upcoming right here. We also have Tuesday night fights. That's going to be Free Play Denton. That's going to be Street Fighter the movie, the game, which apparently is a game. But it's going to be my mothership, my home base, Free Play Denton. Such a different feel than the other free plays. It's so cozy. It's neon everywhere.
And you can drink your beer outside.
Denton, you can drink beer outside in Denton.
Nice.
Lil D,
You know, if that's your
if
thing.
you prefer. But yeah, come play some Street Fighter the movie, the game. Say that 10 times fast.
The movie, the game.
So that's gonna be it for us. Again, this is pilot episode Pinballers. I think it went well.
Yep, Lil D.
The plan is for this to be a monthly show. Guests may or may not change. Topics will change. We'll be here next month sometime. Free Play Arlington. Again, this is community group, community operated. We run this. Chris helps us produce it. Other people will help us produce it in the future probably. But not. I don't want to call it an official Free Play podcast. This is not endorsed.
Not endorsed.
These
not
scorching
sanctioned.
hot takes are not endorsed. But again, we will see y'all next month. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Take care.